The diner was almost empty that night. Only the low buzz of neon lights and the soft hum of machines filled the air. A man sat in the corner booth, his shoulders heavy, his face tired. He pushed his fork slowly through the last pieces of food on his plate. It had been a long day, and the colony city outside felt colder than usual. He was not expecting company. He was not expecting anyone to even notice him. But then he felt it, a presence small and quiet. Standing close to his table, he looked up. 4 children stood there. Thin, ragged, their clothes torn and dusty. They looked as if they had been walking for miles with no rest. Their voices came together in a soft whisper. "Can we have your leftovers?" For a moment, the man thought he had misheard. Children in this part of the colony were rare. Most were kept indoors at night, safe from the dangers of the streets. But these 4 were not only outside. They were standing right in front of him. Hungry, desperate, waiting. His first thought was simple pity. His second thought was fear. Something about them was not right. Their faces were pale, but their eyes were glowing, a deep, unnatural shade of blue, shining softly in the dim light of the diner. The man froze. The fork slipped from his hand and clattered against the plate. Every sound in the diner seemed to stop for a moment. The kids did not move. They just stared at him with those strange, glowing eyes, and he felt his heartbeat quicken. He had seen many things in this colony. Strange creatures, alien workers, machines with minds of their own. But he had never seen children like this. They were human, yes. Their small hands and thin faces proved that. But those eyes told another story. Something hidden, something dangerous. The oldest of the 4, a boy with messy black hair, stepped forward. He spoke again, his voice soft but steady. "Please, sir, just the leftovers. We won't bother you after that." The man swallowed. He could feel the eyes of other customers in the diner. Some were watching with curiosity. Others with clear unease. A couple near the counter whispered to each other and then quickly left. The waitress behind the counter kept her gaze low. She acted as if she had not seen anything at all. The man looked at his plate. Half of his meal was still there, untouched. He slowly pushed the plate toward the children. "Here," he said quietly. "Take it." The children did not wait. They grabbed the food and ate quickly, their small hands shaking as they brought each bite to their mouths. It was not just hunger, it was desperation. They ate like they had not seen food for days. The man kept staring, caught between concern and suspicion. Those blue eyes flickered again, bright and unnatural. He almost wanted to look away, but he couldn't. Something in him whispered to leave, to walk out of this diner and never look back. But another voice, quieter yet stronger, told him to stay, to understand, to find out why these children were here. He leaned back in his seat. "Where are your parents?" he asked slowly. No answer. The kids kept eating, not even looking up. He asked again, a little louder. "Do you have parents?" Finally, the smallest of them, a girl with tangled blonde hair, lifted her head, her glowing eyes met his, and she whispered one word. "No." The man felt a chill run through him. The word was simple, but the way she said it was heavy. It carried something more than sadness. It carried fear, and maybe even a warning. Before he could ask more, the waitress walked by his table. Her hands shook as she placed a glass of water down. She leaned close, her voice no more than a breath. "You should not be talking to them," she said. "Finish your meal and leave." The man frowned. "Why?" He whispered back. The waitress did not look at him. Her eyes flicked to the children and then quickly away. "They're not supposed to be here," she muttered. And then she hurried back behind the counter. The man turned his gaze back to the kids. They had finished every scrap of food on his plate. Their hands still trembled. Their eyes still glowed faintly in the dim light. And for the first time he realized something. The diner had grown quiet, too quiet. He glanced at the window, outside, down the street. Dark figures moved, soldiers. Their armor glistened under the neon signs as they marched slowly. Scanning the streets, one of them held a scanner that pulsed with a faint blue light. The man felt his stomach tighten. The kids noticed too. They shrank back, their small bodies pressing closer to the shadows of his booth. The oldest whispered in a panicked voice, "They're here." The man looked from the soldiers outside to the children beside him. In that moment, he knew these were not just hungry kids. They were something more, something dangerous enough to be hunted. And he was sitting right in the middle of it. Strange encounter. The man's heart beat faster as the soldiers passed outside. Their boots hit the ground in heavy rhythm, and the sound echoed through the narrow streets. The diner lights flickered, and every customer went quiet, pretending not to see. The children pressed closer to the booth, their glowing eyes dim but still visible. The man did not move. He tried to act calm, but inside, his chest felt heavy. He did not want trouble. Not with soldiers, not with anyone. But something about these kids made it impossible for him to stand up and walk away. The door to the diner opened. Cold air rushed inside. Carrying the metallic smell of the street, 2 soldiers stepped in, their helmets covering their faces. The red glow of their visors scanned across the room. Everyone froze, even the waitress behind the counter, her hands shaking as she wiped a glass. "Inspection," one soldier said, his voice hard and mechanical through the helmet. "No one leaves until we check." The man lowered his gaze to his empty plate. The kids crouched low, hiding under the table. He could feel their fear pressing against him like a heavy weight. The smallest girl's hand gripped his coat, trembling. She whispered so softly he almost didn't hear it. "Please don't tell them." The man didn't answer. One of the soldiers moved slowly between the tables. He looked at each customer, his scanner pulsing with blue light. Every time it flashed, the man thought of the kid's eyes. The scanner beeped once near the counter, but then went silent. The soldier grunted and turned toward the back. The man felt the tension rising. His throat was dry, his palms sweaty. If the soldiers came closer, they would find the kids in seconds, and then what? What would they do to them? The boy hiding under the table whispered again. "Urgent this time. If they see us, we're finished. You don't understand. We're not allowed outside." The man clenched his jaw. He wanted to ask questions. He wanted to know the truth. But this was not the time. He stayed still as the soldiers moved past his booth. One of them paused, turning his visor toward the man's table. The red glow stopped right on him. The man held his breath. The soldier stared for a long second, then turned away and walked to the kitchen. The kids stayed hidden, their bodies shaking. The man whispered sharply, "What are you? Why are they after you?" No one answered, only their wide glowing eyes looked back at him from the shadows. Finally, the oldest boy leaned close and whispered, "We can't tell you here. They'll hear us, please. Help us get out." The man felt his stomach twist. Help them. He didn't even know them. Didn't know what they were, and if he got caught, the soldiers would throw him into a cell or worse. Yet as he looked at their thin faces, their trembling hands, something inside him hardened. The soldiers returned to the front. "No one suspicious," one of them said. The other grunted. But his scanner gave one last flash near the back door. The kids stiffened under the table. The man realized they couldn't stay here much longer. The soldiers would sweep the whole block soon. If the kids were still inside the diner, they were finished. The waitress moved past again, her face pale, her eyes darting nervously at the children's hiding place. She leaned down and hissed into the man's ear. "If you're smart, you'll throw them out now." Before it's too late, the man turned his head slowly toward her. Her lips were tight, her hands trembling, but her eyes carried fear, not anger. Fear of what these kids were. Fear of what might happen if they stayed. The man whispered back, "What will happen to them if the soldiers catch them?" The waitress froze, her lips pressed together as if she wanted to answer but dared not. Then she shook her head quickly and walked away. The man sat in silence. The kids clung to him like shadows. Outside, more soldiers marched by, their voices sharp, their scanners glowing. The man knew he was standing at a crossroad. Either he ignored the kids, pushed them away, and saved himself, or he made a choice that would change everything. The boy spoke again, his voice desperate. "Please, you're the only one who's even looked at us without hate. We can't do this alone." The man's throat tightened. He had been many things in his life. A worker, a fighter, a wanderer. But he had never been anyone's protector, not since long ago when he lost someone he couldn't save. Something inside him shifted. He leaned forward, whispering fast, "There's a back door through the kitchen if we move now. We might slip past them." The children nodded, their eyes wide with fragile hope. The man pushed back his chair, it scraped against the floor, and for a heartbeat he thought the sound was too loud. One of the soldiers turned his head, but before he could look closer, the waitress dropped a tray behind the counter. The clatter of dishes drew their attention. The man used the moment, he motioned to the kids, and together they slid out of the booth. Keeping low through the kitchen door they moved. Silent and quick, steam rose from boiling pots, and the cook didn't even look up. The kids followed the man as he pushed open the back door. Cold night air struck his face. The street behind the diner was dark, filled with broken lights and shadows. The boy whispered, "They'll be looking for us. We need to run," the man nodded. And with that, their strange journey began. One tired man and 4 glowing-eyed children, slipping into the night, chased by enemies he did not yet understand. But in his gut he already knew this was only the beginning. The warning the night air was sharp and cold. The man and the children slipped into the back street, their steps light and quick. Behind them the diner door swung shut, leaving the glow of neon behind. Ahead the city stretched like a maze. Dark alleys, broken lamps, buzzing wires above. The man kept his head low. He guided the children through narrow lanes, past trash heaps and rusted machines. His heart pounded in his chest. He was not used to running from soldiers anymore. Those days were behind him, or so he thought. The smallest girl stumbled on a loose stone. He caught her arm before she fell. "Careful," he whispered. Her glowing blue eyes looked up at him. Filled with fear and trust, something stirred in him. Something he had buried long ago. The oldest boy pointed toward the south end of the alley. "Over there we know a safe place," he said. But before they could move further, a sharp metallic hum echoed above. The man looked up. A patrol drone glided across the sky, its red light scanning the street. "Hide," the man hissed. They pressed against the wall, under the shadow of a broken sign. The drone's light swept close. The man held his breath, his hand tightening on the girl's shoulder. The red beam lingered for a moment, then passed. The drone moved on, disappearing into the distance. The children relaxed with shaky breaths. The man whispered harshly, "Why are they after you? What did you do?" The boy shook his head. "It's not what we did. It's what we are." Before the man could ask more, a voice echoed from behind them. "You shouldn't be here." The man turned quickly. An old woman stood in the shadow of a doorway, her clothes worn, her hair thin and gray. Her eyes flicked nervously between the children and the sky. "You're being foolish," she hissed. "If the patrols see you with them, you'll vanish just like the others." The man stepped forward, lowering his voice. "What do you mean? Who are these kids?" The woman's eyes narrowed. "You really don't know?" she asked, her tone sharp. When the man shook his head, she leaned closer. "They're not supposed to exist, not outside, not in the open. If the authority finds them here, they won't just take the children. They'll take you too." The children shrank back. The woman's gaze softened, but only for a moment. "I've seen what happens," she whispered. "Whole families taken, never seen again. All because of eyes like those." The man felt a chill move through him. He looked at the kids, their pale faces, their glowing eyes. They weren't just lost children, they were hunted. He asked, voice low and tight, "What are they?" The woman shook her head. "Keep your questions for another time. If you're smart, you'll leave them now, walk away. Pretend you never saw them." The man clenched his jaw. Walking away, that was the easy choice, but the girl's hand gripped his sleeve again. Small and trembling, he looked down at her, then back at the woman. "I can't," he said quietly. The woman sighed as if she expected that answer. Her eyes darted to the sky again. "Then listen to me," she whispered sharply. "Don't go south, that's where they search the hardest. Their scanners are strongest there. Head east toward the old shipping yards. The authority avoids that place." The man frowned. "Why?" The woman shook her head. "Too much old tech buried under the ground. It scrambles their signals, but hurry, you don't have long." Before he could ask more, the woman vanished into the dark of her doorway. The man stood frozen for a moment, her warning still in his ears. He looked at the children, their faces pale with worry. "East then," he said, his voice firm. They moved quickly, deeper into the alleys. The sounds of soldiers' boots echoed faintly in the distance. The boy walked close to the man, whispering, "She's right. We can't be scanned if they see us. It's over." The man glanced down at him. "Why? What happens if they catch you?" The boy hesitated, his lips pressing together, then he whispered, "They'll take us back to the labs, they'll cut us open again." The man stopped in his tracks. The words hit him like a punch. Again, the boy had said. Not the first time, not an empty fear. This was something they had lived through. The man looked at them with new eyes. Not just children, not just strange. Glowing-eyed creatures, they were survivors. And someone wanted them back. The girl tugged his sleeve again. "They're coming," she whispered. The man heard it too, shouts in the distance. Boots pounding, drones humming. The soldiers had found their trail. "Run," he said sharply. They darted through another alley, the city around them a blur of shadows and broken light. The man led them east, toward the shipping yards, his mind racing. Every corner felt like a trap, every sound like a threat. But the old woman's warning echoed in his head. Don't go south, head east, stay hidden, stay alive. He didn't know if he could trust her. But right now, it was the only chance they had. They ran into the night. Soldiers closing behind, drones circling above. The man felt the weight of his choice heavier with every step. He had no idea what he was protecting. But he knew one thing for certain. Walking away was no longer possible. The chase begins, the man's boots splashed in puddles as he ran. The children followed close behind, their thin legs moving as fast as they could. The alleys of the colony city twisted and turned like a broken maze. Neon lights flickered above. Broken signs buzzed with dying sparks. Every shadow felt alive, every sound sharper than it should be. Behind them, the soldiers' shouts grew louder. Metal boots struck the ground in rhythm. The high whine of drones filled the air. Their searchlights cut across the walls, sweeping closer and closer. The man grabbed the boy's arm and pulled him into a narrow passage. "Stay close, don't stop," he whispered. The children pressed against him, their glowing eyes wide. Fear clung to them like a second skin. They did not speak, only breathed hard, their chests rising and falling in panic. A sudden beam of red light swept across the alley mouth. The man froze, pushing the kids deeper into the shadows. A drone hovered outside, its scanner pulsing with a faint hum for a moment. The red glow touched the wall only a few feet from them. The man held his breath. The children pressed against him, silent as stone. Then, as quickly as it came, the light moved on. The drone hummed away, joining others in the night sky. The man exhaled slowly. "We can't stay out in the open," he muttered. "We need cover." The oldest boy pointed east. "There's a junkyard. Near the shipping yards, we can hide there." His voice cracked with fear, but also with hope. The man nodded. "Then that's where we go." They darted from shadow to shadow, but the soldiers were closing in. A voice barked from a speaker, metallic and cruel. "Unauthorized subjects detected. Quadrant lockdown initiated." The man cursed under his breath. Metal gates slid down at the end of the street. Blocking their path, the children gasped, their eyes wide with panic. "We're trapped," the smallest girl whispered. "No, not yet," the man said sharply. He scanned the wall, his eyes falling on a broken service ladder leading to the rooftops. "Climb," he ordered. The kids stared at him. "Uncertain, climb now," he barked. The boy went first, pulling himself up with shaking arms. Then the others followed, scrambling quickly despite their fear. The man waited until the last one started up, then grabbed the ladder himself, his muscles strained. But adrenaline pushed him higher, below. Soldiers stormed into the alley, one of them pointed upward. "There!" Red beams shot past, striking the ladder, sparks flying. The children screamed but kept climbing. The man reached the rooftop and pulled the last girl up just as a shot burned the metal below. The ladder groaned and tore away, crashing into the alley with a loud clang. The man pulled the children close. "Run across, stay low," he said. The rooftop stretched like jagged teeth. Pipes, broken vents, and hanging wires blocked their path. But at least up here they had room to move. They ran, leaping over gaps. Ducking under rusted beams, the man led them. His breath harsh, his legs heavy. But the soldiers didn't stop. Drones rose higher, sweeping the rooftops with beams of red. Their metallic voices called out again. "Unauthorized subjects must surrender. Resistance will be punished." The man snarled under his breath. Punished. He knew what that meant. Not prison, not a fine. It meant disappearance. It meant the children would vanish back into those labs the boy had whispered about. They reached the edge of the roof. Below was another street filled with shadows. "Jump," the man ordered. The kids looked at him. Terrified, "It's not far, you can make it, jump!" The boy jumped first. Landing hard but safe, the others followed. Stumbling as they hit the ground, the man landed last, his knees jolting with the impact. They rolled into the darkness of the street, breaths ragged for a moment, silence. Then, a soldier's shout echoed close by. "They're heading east. Don't let them reach the yards." The man's stomach twisted. The soldiers knew where they were going. The kids looked at him, desperate. "What do we do?" the boy asked, his voice cracking. The man looked down the street to the east, far off. The faint outline of the shipping yards rose against the sky, towers of scrap metal and rusted machines. Abandoned decades ago, it was their only chance. "We run faster," he said, his voice firm. "No stopping. No looking back." The children nodded, and together they ran. Their footsteps pounded against cracked stone. The night filled with shouts, the whine of drones, the hum of scanners. The chase had truly begun. The man felt it deep inside. This was no accident. These kids were not lost, not random. They were hunted, and now he was part of their hunt. He didn't know how far it would go. He didn't know if they would survive the night. But he knew one thing with certainty. There was no turning back. The secret revealed. The shipping yards loomed ahead like a graveyard of giants. Twisted cranes leaned over rusted cargo ships, their steel arms broken and silent. Stacks of containers rose high, covered in dust and graffiti. The place smelled of oil, rust, and rainwater trapped in broken metal. The man led the children into the maze of containers. Their glowing eyes flickered in the dark like small lanterns. They moved quickly, their steps light, their breaths heavy. Behind them, the city noise faded. Only the distant hum of drones lingered. "Searching the skies here," the man said. Pulling them into a gap between two containers, the space was narrow, hidden in shadows. "We'll rest for a moment." The children collapsed onto the ground, their thin bodies trembling with exhaustion. The smallest girl hugged her knees, her glowing eyes dimmer now. The boy sat against the wall, sweat shining on his forehead. The man crouched beside them. "You need to tell me," he said firmly. "What are you? Why are they after you?" The boy looked at him, lips pressed tight. The other children avoided his gaze. For a moment, the silence was heavy. Then the boy whispered, "We were made." "Not born," the man's chest tightened. "Made? What do you mean?" The boy's voice shook. "We were in a lab. We lived in glass rooms. They gave us food. They taught us things. But they never called us children. They called us subjects." The man stared at them, his mind racing. Experiments, he had heard rumors before. Whispers of projects the authority denied, but he never thought he'd see proof. And now proof was sitting right in front of him with glowing blue eyes. "They tested us every day," the boy continued. "They checked our blood, our bones, even our dreams. Sometimes it hurt so much. We couldn't even cry anymore," his voice cracked. "They said we were special, that we were the future, but we were just trapped." The smallest girl spoke then, her voice soft and trembling. "They put wires in our heads. We could hear things, machines, signals, voices that weren't human." The man frowned. "You're saying you can connect to machines?" The girl nodded, her glowing eyes shimmered in the shadows. "They made us with alien blood, mixed with human. That's why our eyes glow. That's why they want us back." The man's stomach turned. Human and alien combined. If that was true, these children were not just survivors. They were living secrets, evidence of something forbidden. He understood now why the soldiers hunted them. The authority would never let them walk free. They would lock them away forever, or worse. The boy's eyes filled with tears. "We escaped one night when the power failed. The alarms rang, but we ran anyway. We thought we could hide in the city. But they've been chasing us ever since." The man looked at them. 4 children, half human, half something else, created, not born. He felt anger stir inside him, anger at the authority. Anger at whoever thought children could be treated like tools. But anger would not save them. They needed safety. And right now there was none. The boy leaned closer, his voice sharp with urgency. "Please don't take us back. We can't go back there. They'll cut us apart. They'll make more like us and no one will know." The man closed his eyes for a moment. His thoughts spun like storm winds. He hadn't asked for this. He hadn't planned to protect anyone. But now he was holding a truth bigger than he ever wanted, and 4 small lives depended on him. He opened his eyes. "You're safe with me as long as I breathe. They won't take you back." The children stared at him, shocked. For the first time, their glowing eyes softened with hope. But hope was fragile. A sudden noise cut through the air. The whine of a drone. Closer than before. Red light flickered across the metal walls. The soldiers had tracked them. The man clenched his fists. "No more hiding," he muttered. He pulled the children deeper into the yard, weaving between containers. Every step echoed with danger. The kids followed, their glowing eyes bright in the dark. As they moved, the boy whispered, "There are more like us. Still in the lab, still trapped." "We're not the only ones." The man's heart pounded more. "How many? How far did this go?" He didn't have time to ask. The drone's red light swept over the containers. Voices of soldiers shouted in the distance. The hunt was closing in. The man tightened his jaw. He didn't know how far he could run, but he knew one thing. The children carried a secret that could change everything. And he had just stepped into the middle of it. Decision under fire. The shipping yard was no longer silent. The night air shook with noise, boots striking metal, drones buzzing overhead. Orders shouted through speakers. The hunters were closing in. The man gritted his teeth and pulled the children deeper into the maze of containers. "Stay low, stay close," he whispered. But even as he said it, he knew they couldn't keep running forever. The authority didn't stop, they never stopped. And these children were the prize they would not let escape. A red beam swept across the yard, striking the corner of a container. The boy gasped, pulling the younger ones down. "Too close," he whispered. The drone hovered above them, scanning, its hum sharp and cold. The man looked around quickly. Rusting machines stood nearby. Dead for years, but maybe not all dead. He spotted a broken loader, a huge metal beast with claw arms. Its control panel smashed but not completely gone. He grabbed the smallest girl's arm. "Can you do it?"
"Can you touch the machine?"
he asked quickly. Her glowing eyes widened. "You mean, connect?" "Yes," the man said. "Wake it up just for a minute." The girl hesitated, fear flashing in her glowing eyes. Then she pressed her hand against the cold metal. Her eyelids fluttered, the machine groaned, its lights flickering to life. Old gears screamed as the loader lifted one massive claw. The drone above gave a sharp alarm. The man shouted, "Now run!" The loader swung its claw wildly, crashing into a stack of containers. The metal thundered as containers toppled, blocking the path of the approaching soldiers. Dust and sparks filled the air. The children ran, the man right behind them. Blaster fire ripped through the night. Bolts of red energy struck the metal around them. The man shoved the kids down behind a container, sparks raining over their heads. One soldier's voice barked, "Don't damage the subjects." "Capture alive." The man's blood boiled at the words. Subjects, not children. He clenched his fists. He had run enough, maybe it was time to fight. He spotted a loose metal pipe on the ground. Heavy and sharp at one end, he grabbed it, his knuckles white. The kids looked at him in fear. "What are you doing?" the boy whispered. The man's voice was low and hard. "Buying you time." The soldiers moved closer, their visors glowing red. The man stepped out from behind the container, swinging the pipe with raw force. The first soldier went down with a crack against his helmet. The second raised his weapon, but the man slammed the pipe into his chest plate. Knocking him back, blaster fire lit the air. The man ducked, rolled, and swung again. He fought like a cornered animal, every strike fueled by rage. Rage at the soldiers, rage at the authority, rage at a world that hunted children. But there were too many. 3 more soldiers rushed in, their weapons raised. The man's arms burned with exhaustion. His chest heaving, he couldn't hold them off forever. Then it happened. The boy stepped out, his glowing eyes brighter than before. He raised his hand, trembling, and suddenly, the soldier's weapons sparked. Bolts of blue energy crackled through the air. Frying the rifles in their hands, the soldiers stumbled back. Shouting in shock, the boy gasped, his body shaking. I can stop their machines," he whispered. The man stared at him, stunned. "You should have done that earlier," he muttered. The boy's eyes dimmed. I didn't know if I could." The soldiers regrouped quickly. One shouted, "Use nets. Don't let them escape." Metallic nets fired from launchers, whistling through the air. The man yanked the kids down just in time, the nets slamming into the containers instead. The oldest girl screamed as one brushed past her, nearly tangling her arm. The man's chest ached with desperation. They couldn't win this fight, not head-on. He looked at the kids. They were terrified, trembling, but they trusted him. He had to make a choice, leave them now and save himself, or stay and fight until the end. The easy choice whispered in his mind, "Run. Leave them, no one will blame you." But another voice spoke louder, the same voice that had made him slide that plate of food across the diner table. "You can't walk away, not again." The man stood tall, pipe still in hand. He faced the soldiers, his voice low and steady. "You want them? You'll have to go through me." The children looked at him in shock. Hope flickered in their glowing eyes. The soldiers advanced, blasters humming, nets ready. The man's muscles ached, but his spirit burned. For the first time in years, he wasn't just surviving, he was protecting. And he knew in that moment, this fight wasn't just about the children. It was about him too, about the man he had once been, and maybe the man he could be again. The yard shook with another round of blaster fire. The children huddled behind the containers, their glowing eyes shining in the dark. The man gripped the pipe tighter, ready to fight until his last breath. He had made his decision, and there was no turning back. The cliffhanger, the yard was alive with fire and metal. Blaster shots lit the dark like red lightning. The man swung his pipe again, knocking a soldier to the ground. But his arms were heavy, his body slowing. He couldn't fight forever. The boy's glowing eyes flickered. Sparking with blue light, he stretched his hand, forcing another soldier's rifle to sputter and die. The youngest girl pressed her palm against a broken loader. Its gears screamed to life, the giant claw swinging wildly. Blocking a path for a moment, it seemed like they could escape. For a moment, hope burned bright, but then a sharp whine filled the air, deeper than the drones, heavier than the soldiers. The man turned his head and froze. From the far end of the yard, a new figure stepped forward. Not just a soldier, something worse. A tall machine built like a man but twice the size. Its metal armor gleamed black, its visor glowing crimson. It carried a weapon bigger than the boy himself. The soldiers moved aside, bowing their heads slightly. This was no ordinary hunter. This was an enforcer. The children gasped, their glowing eyes dimming with fear. The boy whispered, "They sent one of those for us?" The man tightened his grip on the pipe, though he knew it was useless. He had seen enforcers before, long ago. They didn't take prisoners, they finished jobs. The machine's voice boomed through the yard. Subjects 14 through 17, surrender immediately. Non-compliance will result in termination. The children pressed against the man. Trembling, the boy shook his head violently. "We can't go back, we can't." The man's chest heaved. He was out of options, out of strength, but giving up was no longer possible. He stepped in front of the children, pipe in hand, his voice raw. "You want them? You'll have to kill me first." The enforcer tilted its head, almost curious, then it raised its weapon. The air buzzed with deadly energy. The man braced himself, but before the shot came, the smallest girl screamed. Her glowing eyes burned brighter than ever. The broken loader beside them roared to life again. This time it didn't just swing its claw, it charged, slamming into the enforcer with all its rusted weight. The ground shook with the impact, metal against metal, sparks raining down. The enforcer stumbled, its weapon firing wildly into the sky. The children clung to the man. Their eyes wide, the boy shouted, "Now run!" The man grabbed their hands and pulled them deeper into the maze of containers. The fight between machine and machine thundered behind them. Every crash echoed like the roar of a storm, but the enforcer was not finished. Its red visor flared with a violent swing. It tore the loader apart, ripping it in two. The girl collapsed. Blood trickling from her nose, she had pushed too far. The man scooped her into his arms without stopping. "Hold on," he muttered. "We're almost out." They stumbled toward the far edge of the yard. The shadows opened into a wide clearing filled with abandoned ships. One ship stood taller than the rest, its hull cracked but its frame still strong. The boy gasped, "That one! We can hide inside!" The man ran toward it, but his ears caught the sound behind them. Heavy steps, steady and unbroken. The enforcer was following. Closer, closer, unstoppable. They reached the ship's broken hatch and slipped inside. The air smelled of rust and dust. The children huddled in the dark while the man leaned against the door. Pipe in hand, his body screamed with exhaustion. But he stood ready, the boy whispered. "It won't stop. It will never stop." The man looked down at him. "Then we don't stop either," he said. His voice was steady, though his heart pounded like thunder. Outside, the heavy steps grew louder. The enforcer's shadow fell across the hatch. The red glow of its visor cut through the dark. The man raised the pipe. The children held their breath. And in that frozen moment, all of them knew. This was not the end. This was only the beginning. The enforcer's voice echoed through the ship. "You cannot run forever. You are property of the authority. You will be returned." The boy squeezed his fists, his glowing eyes blazing. "No," he whispered, "we're not property. We're alive." The hatch shook with the force of the enforcer's blow. Metal groaned, dust rained from the ceiling. The children clung to the man. He tightened his grip, ready for the fight that would decide everything. The screen fades to black. The sound of metal tearing fills the night. And the story ends in silence, leaving only one question. Will they survive the night?